What's up guys, it's Rota here and welcome back to yet another amazing video on the channel. If you didn't catch Friday's video, make sure you do check that out. It is the top 5 cards you should be picking up from your 2022 Megatins, and most of them are played in the decks I'll be mentioning today. Today are the top 5 decks of the current format. Make sure that you do stick around to the end of this video so I can give my little announcement. But without any further ado, we're going to get straight into this video. If you do like this type of content, make sure you do leave a like and subscribe down below. Make sure you do check out our shorts videos. You're doing very well, close to 1 a day, and if you like pack openings, you can go over there and tell me that I sent you in the comments. It will make my day. So without any further ado, let's get on to the top 5 decks of this one. At the 5th place spot, I do believe that Punk is a deck that should be taken very, very seriously this meta. And I know it's something that has sort of just come out of the blue. If you look at the release of Punk, no one was really thinking that that would be a deck that would be taking over the meta. But lo and behold, with 3 E-Telly, it is indeed, it has a lot of basically extension and gets a lot of card advantage, and it can be paired up with a lot of things. I've seen Punk paired up with Tilaments, I've seen it with Brave, I've seen it with a host of other things, and I just think Punk on its own as well is very, very good. Ability to synchro summon, to mill a bunch of cards is absolutely crazy, guys. You need around 2 to 3 hand traps to effectively stop their turn, and just like a simple E-Telly will just get it all started again because it will give them access to the Xiamen. They'll pay 600 life points, they'll Rota, and it will just all carry on from there. They have the field spell that's like a Pot of Greed. It draws in 2 cards. It's a very, very insane deck, and I think it's a deck that should be taken seriously. I think it's the 5th best deck of the format right now. So now with that being said, let's get on to deck. We have another deck that sort of just came out of the blue. No one really suspected them to be good, but Konami has kept trickling them a little bit of support here and now, and now they've become a deck that is absolutely crazy. Of course, I'm talking about the best Cybers deck this format. I really wish I could say Salmon Grades, but it is of course Mathmex. Mathmex have the ability with their brand new card to have crazy plays, and the fact that they have their super factorial, which is their trap that they can search, which basically just monster rewards them 3 cards during your turn, and then the Xyz summon into the Xyz, what's his name, the Alan Burton I believe is what it's called. They can search for floodgates as well, and they can also have the negation if they have the Mathmic Diameter underneath an Xyz monster. And I think for those facts stated that this deck is the 4th best deck at the moment. I've seen it paired up with Ignister as well. I think that's very interesting, as Ignister are very, very good at extending and have that big towers monster as well that can be very difficult to deal with. But the fact that they are very, very good, very hand trap resilient, can search any floodgate in the game. I've seen them search Rivalry of Warlords, and the fact that the Xyzs also have negations, I think that Mathmex are the 4th best deck of the format. I think it's a deck that needs a good pilot, but it is one that is very rewarding, and it has of course triple silent mining as well to search. I just think it's the 4th best deck of the format and the best Cybers deck at the moment. I think Mathmech on its own is better than Mathmech at Ignister, and I think also Marincess is in contention for the top 3 Cybers decks. I just think Salmon Grace has fallen behind just a little. Hopefully 3 Gazelle on the list can help bring the Salmon Great boys back. But number 4 we had Mathmex, a deck you should be definitely watching out for. So now let's get on to deck. The deck number 3, I have a bit of a hot take, but I do think this is the 3rd best deck this format, and I think it just needs a very good pilot. I don't think people are as experienced with it as you may think. It is of course Exorcist. Now hear me out, Exorcist is by far the most expensive deck. If you do get max rarity, it's also the prettiest deck, as many starlights and collector rares, but from a competitive standpoint, I think Exorcists have a lot of potential, and the better Tilaments get, the better Exorcists get. Exorcist is pretty much the perfect deck to counter Tilaments due to in part how the Exorcist cards gain all their effects from Tilament effects. If you don't know what I mean, the Exorcisters, basically all the main deck monsters give you a free Xyz summon whenever a card is moved from the graveyard, and Tilaments do exactly that. I think it's a deck that is very underexplored this format. I just think it needs a very good pilot to show how good the deck is. It has Exorcist and Martha, which is its most recent support. Special summons itself and the Exorcist equivalent to it from the deck, giving you a free Xyz summon into Exorcist and Michaelis, which then lets you Rota for any spell and trap. I just think it's an absolutely ridiculous deck. It has basically 3 banishes a turn and a lot of follow-up. I just think it's one of those decks that right now isn't being looked at, and it just takes a very good pilot. It can of course also run Dimension Shifter, which was reprinted in the Megatin, so that is more accessible, which is also good. And I think that a lot of people, if the ban list doesn't address Tilaments and Splites, which I don't think it will in a massive drastic way, I think Exorcists will definitely be picking up in popularity, and it will take the 3rd best deck of the format. moving on to deck number 2. Now, of course, you know what number 2 and 1 are going to be for this format, but you don't know the order. Now, hear me out. For the second best deck of the format, I'm giving it to Tilaments. Now, in the future, I think Tilaments will easily take the top spot. But for now, I just think Tilaments, since they rely on milling and a bit of luck, I think Tilaments are not as good as the number 1 place deck. Now, Tilaments will be getting a lot better. They're going to get more cards in Darkwing Blast. They're going to take the strategy to the next level. If you look in the OCG, it is the best deck there by far. And I will be explaining as to why that is in the number 1 section once I get there. But for now, I think Tilaments is the second best deck. It is the most versatile deck. I've seen Danger Tilaments, I've seen Punk Tilaments, I've seen Pure Tilaments that just run King of the Swamp version. I've seen a bunch of different versions of Tilaments. I've even seen Zombie Tilaments just to mill those zombies. It's kind of crazy how many decks benefit of milling. It is basically everything Lightsworn wished it could have been, but just better in every single way, because it also fusion summons, which is absolutely crazy. You can fusion summon to anything as long as you have King of the Swamp in the grave, and it's ridiculous. But I think Tilaments can easily become best deck with the next set. But for now, looking at the tournament results, since the number 1 deck has been very dominant and it's very consistent, it doesn't rely on milling. Unlike Tilaments, I think Tilaments is the second best deck of the format right now, but it will take supreme very, very soon. It's number 2, but will very, very shortly be coming for the number 1 spot. And speaking of number 1, let's get to the best deck. So, for the best deck of the format, in my opinion, but it isn't really in my opinion because it is fact, we have Splites. Now, Splites are an absolutely insane deck. If you guys have been away from YuGiOh, I'll just quickly explain what Splites do. They revolve around level 2s, and they can use their Link monster to XC summon into basically a Mirage Stalio, which summons any level 2 from the deck. You pair this with the Frog package and you get Totally Awesome, and then the Link 2 can revive Totally Awesome during your opponent's turn, so you sort of get 2 negations and you get to set cards, and it's hyper consistent, guys. I don't think you guys realize how consistent Splites is, which is the only reason I put it above Tilaments in number 1 spot, is that Splites, guys, all you need is 1 level 2 on the board, just 1, and the entire engine unlocks as soon as you special summon Sprite Blue. It is ridiculous what that deck can do. The splash ability it has, I've seen Pure Splites, of course, which involves the frogs. I've seen loads of versions. I've seen like some chaos, random, ridiculous build of Splites. There's so many versions of Splites. There isn't as many versions of Splites as Tilaments, but Splites, again, as long as you can have the level 2 package. I've seen that ritual deck, what's it called? The Nephthys level 2 guys being paired with Splites. It's all level 2 Splites. As long as you can have level 2 on the board, you can play Splites. The Splites is a ridiculous deck. They have the Splite Starter, the specials them 1 out the deck. They have the Splite Smashers, which is a natural out to Mystic Mine, which is a big, big card in this format. I think it will be getting banned, but Splite Smashers is good for the Mystic Mine matchup. And just the ability to make Toad and have 2 negates from it is absolutely ridiculous. Do I think this deck will stay number 1 for a while? I do not think so. Why? Because if you look in the OCG, they banned the Toad, and Tilaments basically just ran supreme after that. I do think Toad will eventually be getting hit, and when that happens, the deck will significantly drop in power. I think Toad is absolutely ridiculous, and I think Tilaments are just behind right now. And when they do get those hits, I think Tilaments will take them over. But for now, I'm putting Splites as the number 1 best deck. Not only are they insanely powerful, but they are hyper consistent, guys. This is sort of that Salmon Great thing when they were best deck. They weren't the most powerful. They were, of course, Sky Strikers, Thunder Dragons. But I think they were the most consistent by far, and that is why they were the best. So that is the end of this top 5 decks of the format, guys. If you enjoyed this type of content, please do let me know in the comments down below. Comment what your top 5 decks are. I know a lot of people don't rate Exorcists. Remember, this is just my opinion. Don't need to be mean, but if you are going to be mean, at least write a comment so I can read about it and respond to you guys. Without any further ado, I'm Rote here, and I'll see you all in the
It's time! Let's go!